Hi, my name is Sammy Bradar, Associate Group Editor for the National Provisioner. I'm here with Lamar Steiger, founding partner of Ranch2Retail. Thank you so much for meeting with me today, Lamar.
And thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to get to chat.
Absolutely. So, just to start off our conversation today, can you talk about what first inspired the Ranch2Retail consultative model?
Yeah, so I have a background as a rancher and in beef production. My father was an innovator at every step of the way. My father-in-law was one of the early executives at Walmart, and he was an innovator in so many ways. And so I think I was trained not only maybe DNA, but also by working with my father-in-law as a ranch manager and always be thinking about the way things can be done better. And so I had the opportunity in 2014 to start working with Walmart on their beef supply chain. They wanted to improve not only the quality, but their reputation as well, which they've spent the last decade and have invested a lot of money and a lot of time and effort into making sure that they have a product on the shelf that consumers want. And that was a lot of fun for me. And it kind of gave me the opportunity to get behind the curtain with retailer and chatting with other retailers as well. I think that what I've realized is that we have a group of producers that actually are in the beef business as far as live cattle that are a new generation, perhaps, that kind of are ready to collaborate and to try to work with an end customer. And then we have retailers that are oftentimes pretty frustrated with the inconsistency that they might get in beef. And it is hard. You know, beef animals are different sizes, they're different areas of the country. We have to raise them differently if it's in a drought or area, I mean, a dry area, as opposed to, in Montana where it's like really cold but has great grass. And so it is a hard supply chain, and it's harder than a lot of the items that might be in the middle of a grocery store. Like if somebody's in the business of making pens, like I have in my hand here, it's the same every time. Every one of these pens is exactly the same. And with your provisioner background, that it's really a bit harder with live animals or even live fruits and vegetables, so that you have to pick. And so the inspiration was putting together my ranching background with my 50 years of living here in Bentonville, Arkansas, and watching the Walmart way and watching how Walmart people are so concentrated on consumers that it is just like an obsession here in Bentonville to think about consumers. And when you put those two together, and I realized that what I thought I needed was some partners, and I formed this company called Ranch2Retail with some people who have a lifetime experience of working with the grocers on the perimeter of the store is the area that has to be refrigerated with fresh eggs, fresh seafood, and our company works with those two. The parent company for my company that I partner with, they work with eggs and with seafood and now with beef. And what we're trying to do is help take the wrinkles out of a very dysfunctional supply chain in like seafood, but also in beef.
Definitely. Thank you. That's very insightful. And how did your backgrounds as both an Angus rancher and your experience at Walmart, how did those inform your formation of the company?
Yeah, my dad always tried to figure out how to connect with the consumers. And in the 1960s, he worked with Monfort, which is an early packing plant company, and Safeway, and always tried to figure out how to connect so that consumers got what they actually wanted. My father-in-law did that a lot on his Angus ranch that I managed for years, called Jack's Ranch. And so then when I had the opportunity to actually get into meetings with retailers and really hear the frustrations that they had, what I realized was that if we started with the retailer who knows the customer so much better than a rancher in Missouri like I am, or I live in Arkansas, but my ranch is in Missouri, or a rancher in Montana, or a feedlot operator in Nebraska. They know what consumers want every day, and they know at what point on price that consumers will switch from one protein to another, and all of those things. And so, what we hope to do at Ranch2Retail with my partners is we hope to work backwards in that supply chain and say, here's what a customer wants. And we have some insights into that through my work at Walmart, but also because the guys that I partner with they know how to satisfy retailers and how to make sure that we're on time and in full and we fulfill the specs that retailers want. And fulfilling the specs in beef is really a lot harder than some of the other supply chains that they might deal with.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you. That was very insightful. And I know
Thanks.
you talked about the ranch to retail model. One of the goals of it is to make consumers the hero. How does that execute that goal? How
Yeah,
is,
so I
yeah,
think for me, it's like you start where we're at now, and what has evolved in the beef business, and I have a whole speech about like the introduction of refrigerated railroad cars was a big deal, and then there were other big deals like case ready meat where you didn't need a butcher in the shop. But what's evolved through that whole thing is we have made the center of all the attention has been the packing plant companies, and they're the ones that everything gathers to, and then they get to kind of go out. And what I'm trying to do with my ranch to retail company is we're trying to make that consumer that you mentioned the hero, and so that the consumer would get a consistent product with the kind of quality that they would be willing to pay for, and to get it not just consistent in a supply of being on time and in full to the grocer, but consistent in the size and how thick you can cut it. Consumers buy their meat by the ring price. We ranchers sell it by the pound, and it's priced by the pound, but a consumer walks up and they see a package and they don't look at exactly how many pounds it is. Oftentimes they don't look at the price per pound. They look at it and say, oh, it's over $20. So I can't buy that. So when cuts of meat are really, really big, the grocer has to cut it thinner and thinner. And then the customer takes it home, and they do that in order to make the price fit per ring. And then the customer takes it home and they're not that happy with it because they overcooked it or whatever. And so that kind of is a little bit of framework about the issues that we're trying to solve.
definitely. That makes a lot of sense. I know product consistency and consistency in that quality is something that consumers can get very frustrated with. I know I myself as a consumer, not specifically for meat products, but food products in general, it's hard to find a good, consistent product. Even going to somewhere like a restaurant, you order a burger and then you go back thinking you're going to get the same burger and it's totally different. So consistency is everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So looking at consumers, ranchers, and retailers, they all often have varying priorities and needs. So how does this ranch to retail model work to bridge the gap between those needs?
Yeah, so I think one of the fears that ranchers have is some sort of deal where there would be vertical integration, where a retailer or a packing plant company would put together a supply chain and kind of use a stick instead of a carrot to get them to produce what they want. And so, in order to get producers of beef cattle to produce what the consumer wants day in, day out, we need to, I think, use a carrot model. And we need to have what I call like vertical cooperation or vertical collaboration instead of this vertical integration, which really kind of has a bad reputation, as I said, among beef producers. They don't want to become just like have a retailer tell them you have to use these vaccines and you have to do this and you have to do that. And so what I think, if you start with the consumer, and the retailer knows the consumer so much better than everyone else along the supply chain, that if you start with that consumer and you start working with ranchers and saying, hey, here's when our market share goes up is when we have this type of beef that the consumer wants. Would you help us produce that and make sure that along the way that we figure out ways to make money together instead of making money off each other, which is traditionally the way that we are. It's an industry that when one segment, and it's traditionally over a 10-year period, and you probably have heard all about it and know this, but over a 10-year period, there's 4 or 5 segments, and each segment makes money at different times. And when the number of cattle is really, really low, like it is now, we're at the lowest number of beef cattle in the United States since 1958. Now, we also produce somewhere around 2 times more per animal than we did in 1958, but we're at the lowest number. And so calf prices are good, which makes it really, really hard for the retailer to make even a very, very small margin because of that out of balance. There, not every industry does it this way. And I think by taking some knowledge that my team at Ranch2Retail has in eggs and in seafood and in other areas, grape juice and jellies, and this is the background of my team, is that they've learned how to straighten out the wrinkles in supply chain that make it so difficult for people to be thinking about long term. I would love for ranchers to be able to plan long term instead of just get through the year. And then that 2-year period when cap prices are high, they pay off the debt and get themselves just kind of back to level. And then here it comes again. Cap prices are low, and they have to work with their banker as their best friend.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, do you have any kind of future plans for this model? Where are you guys at with it? What work have you done so far with the consultative model?
Yeah, so my thing that I was doing before this spring was I had an individual small business that I consulted with technology companies in the beef supply chain, ranchers, and feedlot operators and retail. And so I've kind of collected that muscle through doing that for a decade. And then this last winter, I started hearing from a lot of people that I have known during my entire life that I had visited 7 or 8, 9 years ago about maybe would they be interested in supply chain. And at the time, it didn't work for them and it wasn't right. But over this last winter and spring, they started calling, and others started calling in other segments of the industry and saying, hey, we see that perhaps there's going to be a lot more supply chains of farm to table at scale, like Walmart has done 2 of these at farm to table at scale, then there's more on the way, and that's going to make it harder maybe for grocers to get the meat that they want every day to fill their shelves. And maybe we could start working together. And so I was actually my wife that said, hey, you either need to find some partners or just go back to ranching at our ranch in Missouri because it's just too much. And so we prayed about that and thought about it. And then Doug Beatty, who is the CEO of Fulcrum Collective, the parent company for Ranch2Retail, he and I go to church together, and we started talking about it. And it was exactly what they were trying to do with, as I said before, the perimeter of the store. So we just started, and we're very excited about our pipeline of potential clients. We have a few signed up, and we have people calling us all the time that are trying to kind of figure out where they fit in the new model. We had Sammy, we had a very large feedlot operator that came to see us, and he told us that he believed that in 10 years, 15 years, they would be 10 very large supply chains, the best cattle. And that went right in line with what I felt like from intuition and from my anecdotal evidence of what I'd been through and what my partners had come to the conclusion through data analysis and through really hard data instead of what I normally do is kind of an intuition thing. And so we felt like, oh my gosh, that really backs up with some real power players that we've talked to in the industry, including the man that came to town, that we're on the right track. And so we're just starting out. It's a bootstrap deal, and we have a great small team, and excited to go forward, and just thrilled that you would even take a few minutes to chat with me.
Absolutely, absolutely. It seems like you guys have a clear mission, and especially with how tight the beef supply is getting, I think it's a really important initiative that you guys are embarking on.
Thank you. I really appreciate the encouragement, because as a founder, you wake up in the middle of the night like, oh my gosh, like what have I got myself into?
Sure.
And then my team is like, hey, Lamar, we're all about data. We're all about insights. We understand how grocers work. We're on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any other supply chain insights or anything about the beef industry that you'd like to share with the provisioner audience, or just about your consultative model as well?
So my first consulting, I'm a rancher by trade. And in 2014, the CEO of Walmart the CEO of Walmart US business asked me to help to improve their beef supply chain. And they have 4,500 stores, and so consistency is sometimes an issue. And so I really learned so much about how to put together a supply chain by working with them. They launched their probably what I would think would be the largest farm to table supply chain of beef in the country, with Bob McLaren at 44 farms in Texas, and that meat hit the shelf in March of 2020. So that's right when COVID broke out, and so that was quite the hiccup time. But what I think I got to witness is during that time where there's a huge hiccups in supply chain, the meat that was coming through their own supply chain was coming in at a higher in-store shelf fulfillment rate than the meat that was coming through the old supply chains. And so what I witnessed is that really the COVID thing woke up a lot of retailers that perhaps in the future, the best way to ensure that they have meat on the shelves all the time is to be involved in a supply chain. And Walmart has then done a second supply chain, and I'm no longer consulting for them, but I live here and I'm cheerleading for what they're doing and have great conversations with them. But we're looking at others, and we're also vetting a lot of production groups, cattle ranching groups that could put together 25,000 head a week or hundreds of thousands of head. I mean, 25,000 head a year or hundreds of thousands of head a year.
Wow. Wow. So it seems like you guys have a lot of plans in the works and you guys have already been doing so much and there's so much planned for this. So you guys have got a great plan in action. Now it's just time to execute.
That's right. Now it's time to get to work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Lamar, thank you so much for your time today. It was lovely to meet you. And yeah, just thank you for all your great insights.
Well, thank you so much. We so appreciate you being willing to chat with me.
Absolutely. Well, again, I'm Sammy Bradar, Associate Group Editor for the National Provisioner, here with Lamar Steiger, founding partner of Ranch2Retail. Thank you so much.